is the Spokane Soccer Show, proudly presented by Flatstick Pub, and I am your elated Newcastle supporting host, Benji Wade. Away the lads.
Yeah.
On today's show, I want to put the word out there that we back up at one stadium as Zephyr FC earn 3 points in cold-blooded fashion and even colder-blooded weather, and Velocity FC share the spoils with one Knox to start their 2025 season. And joining me to serve up only the best vibes about all things soccer in the fine city of Spokane, it's Jamie Bartlett of 509 Syndicate.
Woo woo.
What up, Jamie?
And Scott Linklater of South Hill FC. Welcome back to the show, Jamie and Scott.
Yeah.
Hi, Benji.
Hey, Benji.
We back up. Do you guys know that reference?
I
want you to put the word out that we back up.
I don't know
the
what
wire.
This is. The wire.
Stringer bell.
Yeah, I'm not on the wire. I always wanted to, I try to watch my TV shows at least 15 years late.
Idris Elba, do you know the actor?
Yeah.
He plays Stringer Bell.
I'm just about to Game of Thrones. So.
One of the most, we're going to do Game of Thrones here today.
Oh.
Because I felt like a member of the Night's Watch yesterday.
Wow.
Okay. It has been less than 24 hours since I saw the two of you last. Mm-hmm. And it feels a little too soon.
Yeah, ill prepared. That's okay.
No, it's not even ill prepared. It's more like I've seen so much of the two of you in the last 48 hours.
Gross.
So it's nasty. Well, by the way, we have to just get this out of the way immediately. Anytime you bring on this monstrosity that you call a beverage.
Yeah, what is that?
Pure sugar.
And it's good. And it gets me through the day because I'm back from spring break at Gonzaga and I'm tired.
Wait, does it have caffeine injected into it?
Yeah.
Oh, you do that thing or put the shot of, how do you do that though? Is it just default?
I don't. I pay people.
What is it called? The thing?
This is a blended Rebel. We've had this conversation.
We have. I know. I just can't remember what it's called. I lose track of it. The pink drink is really popular right now with the little ones.
It's just a caffeine slushy.
Okay.
You know what? That's actually a really good way to say it. A caffeine slushy.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very enjoyable.
Pink drink is popular. The Lotus something rather is popular.
The White Lotus.
Yeah.
If you watch
the White Lotus is popular.
Another TV show.
I'm not watching it, but I want to.
That one's pretty good.
Walton Goggins is my guy. He's the best.
And last night's episode.
I've heard.
Oof.
Yeah, no spoilers.
No spoilers.
If you haven't seen the great Walton Goggins in Vice Principals with Danny McBride, oh my God.
That was a good show.
It's so funny.
Yeah, it's a messed up show.
Kind of intermittently poignant too. Great show. Shout out. Okay.
Messed up with intermittent poignance, like the podcast.
That is exactly what this podcast is.
Like life.
A series of intermittent poignance.
That's right.
There we go.
Love it.
I missed the first game at one stadium this year, proudly, because I went and supported my daughter at her dance competition in Great Falls, Montana, which was wild. And we were staying in a place that made it easy to go watch the game, great Wi-Fi and all that kind of stuff. So I did get to see that game, but I didn't get to be part of the official christening of 2025 when it comes to one stadium. But we got a chance to watch back-to-back games this weekend. And let's talk all about it. Let's start with just a vibe check from each of you. I'm going to start with you, Jamie, because the 509 Syndicate has a new home in one stadium, and we must talk about this. I only got to see it on TV for the Zephyr versus Carolina Ascent game,
right?
Which it just presented so beautifully on television.
Oh, it's good to know.
Oh my goodness, it was so loud, and I think increasingly over time, we're getting more and more 509 Syndicate folks to show up. So even yesterday, around minute 60, I just looked across because I was across the stadium on the west side. And because I had no voice, if it's not obvious, I'm getting over a cold still. And I was like, I'm not going to go be in the 509 Syndicate section and be the person who's not doing anything and scratching his chin and like with a clipboard.
We could have given you a little horn to blow.
I could have done something, but I'm a kind of nervous watcher.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make me very good for TV in the 509 Syndicate section. It's like, who's that sad bastard? But I digress. It was so like you guys were moving at like minute 60 yesterday of the Velocity game.
We got psyched. And admittedly, because the second half got a little nervy. So I think we were there trying to do our job. So we are now midfield, east side of the stadium.
Section 125.
Section 125. I think we had someone after yesterday's game even come up and say, thank you so much for doing that. I think they thought we were paid. And we're like, no, this is how this works. We just come and we
part
do
of the club. That's the other thing they'll think. The other thing. People think we're part of the club. And I think around that time we were jamming before, having a good time, and then we were feeling the game slip away a little and felt like, okay, we gotta up it. We gotta keep these things going.
if the players can hear us, we want to be all positive. So we want to make sure it doesn't fall off.
Every time Velocity were successful, and they were all but twice, sadly, in foiling the attack of one Knox, that you guys were just even more intense in trying to like augment their bravery. It was really, really cool. Scott, what was your vibe check on the weekend?
It was a great time. So we got to go to the both the games back to back, took 2 different friend groups. It was just a fun hanging out at both games.
And you went last weekend as well.
I went last weekend as well. Different crew. This weekend, just a great time. The weather was rough, but
chilly.
It kind of made for an atmosphere. I know there's a lot of folks who probably didn't come out because it was just so rough. Yeah. But I thought it was a great time. I thought the 509 Syndicate in the middle section made a big difference because in that stadium you have good sound, but you don't have any bounce back, right? And so the directional sound, because when it was at the end, you got some of it, but you didn't get all of it, and you couldn't always tell how many people were down there, right? True. Because it was just like a line, and then maybe multiple lines. Whereas now you could see a larger group, so that was really cool.
The sound, by the way, you're totally right. It was bouncing off the grandstand.
Yeah.
Oh, it made a big difference for the
really
game.
did.
And I got to imagine that people come into this stadium, if you're playing in the USL, it's probably a fun place to play. Minus the weather, right? But
we have heard this from many USL players, both in the Super League and in League One, that they love coming to this stadium.
Yeah. So my vibe was like, hey, if you've not been to a game, we have we're spoiled here to be able to come to a game, sit so close. You get basically front row seats wherever you're at. You know, that's what it feels like. And so you're right on top of the game. You get to see really high quality play. Both the men's and women's games I thought were fun and interesting.
Man, that's somebody driving by real quick.
That is, man. That was really good.
Spokane, Washington, folks.
Is that us? I was confused to get going.
They're just revving up on the show. Yeah, that's right.
We go hard with our crappy cars on Main Street.
Yeah. So fantastic time. I thought the vibe was really cool at the game for both the men's and women's games. I just think it's a cool community event. If you've not been out, you got to get out and go to a game, even in the weather.
Yeah.
Bundle up.
It's a great way to kick off the episode and to 2025 of saying, get out there, folks. It's unbelievable. And I have to shout out the 2,000. I think there were 2,000 last weekend, 2,000 something in the first game. I've got the numbers here. And then 2,400 yesterday. I super appreciate everybody who did show up, though, because this is officially the worst weather I've experienced since starting the podcast. The wind. Oh, my God. Saturday. I could at minute 80, I just looked at all of our players and I'm thinking, I know you're moving a lot, but this cannot be enjoyable because I have played enough sports in really terrible inclement weather or whatever. And it's not great, even though you are moving around and certain positions don't move as much as others. So,
and Saturday we had that little moment of hail. I know at one point I was holding my face.
Hail, snow, slush, rain, wind, sunshine.
Yeah, we did. We saw all 4 seasons in that game. That's true.
But there's something about suffering through a game and cheering your team together that it just makes it good. I don't know. Those who like American football, you always have crappy weather towards the end of the season. So let's go. Get out there.
The whole conversation around whether or not all of U.S. soccer should adopt the European schedule, which is any fans of the Premier League and the USL Super League has the European schedule where they start in the fall, then they take a winter break, and then they resume in the spring. I think we all have weather like we did yesterday. It's like you can add more layers. I was perfectly warm, just not quote unquote comfortable because of the wind or whatever. But when it's 120 degrees in Texas in July, that's no bueno. And there's a ton of teams, especially in USL soccer and the MLS, that play in the Southeast. So anyway.
That's a true story, man. Because you're not going to, you're out in that weather, you're uncomfortable, but you're probably not going to die. Right?
Exactly.
When you get too hot like that, it gets really dangerous at times.
Yeah. Both players and supporters can put on another layer of clothing. There's only so much clothing you can take off to avoid dying in 120 degrees.
Right.
Unless you're Jonathan doing one of our videos.
Unless you're Jonathan. Did
you see the recent one?
No.
Oh, you didn't see our
No.
Oh.
I got to see it.
Oh, how did I miss this?
Yesterday's?
Oh, I didn't see it.
He's like half naked in it. Get on that.
Okay.
All right.
Jonathan, half naked. Don't threaten me with a good time.
Sign Benji up.
All right, let's do some Spokane Soccer Show shout outs. I started this weekend hoping that I could win the weekend treble, which for me was Zephyr FC on Saturday. And then Sunday morning, my beloved Newcastle were playing against Liverpool in the Carabao Cup final, aka the League Cup. And then to finish things off in the evening with Velocity FC playing against one Knox. Hey, by Sunday, around noonish, I had 2 of 3.
Mm-hmm. You're
still,
like 2.5.
I still can't believe it. Yeah, we got a draw. I did get a hold of Lee because I know people were wondering, like, are you and Lee going to be okay? And my love for Lee Wiedman shall not falter. He did. I sent him a text. I said, can you just give me something for the podcast? He said they fully deserved it. Liverpool were off. Liverpool were some way off it today, and Newcastle are worthy champions. Thank you, Lee Wiedman. I have one more shout out. Rocky Wells, the teenager who made an appearance against Chivas under 23 team last summer for Velocity FC, has officially signed the first academy contract in USL Spokane history.
Props.
May that continue. Okay, so Rocky played for Surf. He played for Crossfire Premier, which is a club on the west side, and goes to Meade High School. And I've heard tell that it was like, you have to pick something here. You can't do all of these. And like wasn't playing high school soccer. Maybe his parents didn't want him to play high school soccer. I think I heard. I can't remember. Anyways.
There could be a shift. I mean, a lot of sports are moving away from the high school to just their club because it's overload. You don't get the looks at the high school level across a bunch of sports.
Yeah.
Wild times in the amateur ranks when it comes to these players that are really young.
For sure.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any shout outs?
I have 2.
Let's go.
First, Sonny Baker. Child of Lauren Baker of the 509 Syndicate sang the national anthem yesterday.
Oh, nice.
Oh, and she crushed it.
Yeah, they crushed it.
Yes.
And we didn't even know. And we're like, we know that, Baker. And then second shout out, I wanted to shout out Scott Nix from the 509. Quiet guy. Most people never talk
Love
to
Scott.
him. Super quiet. But he designed our new member-only scarves that look pretty killer.
Nice.
There's some subliminal messaging in there if you look deeply. And they're great. And so I wanted to give a shout out because he got those done and got them to members by the doubleheader this weekend.
Shout out Sonny. Shout out Scott. Scott, do you have any shout outs?
I do have a few shout outs to the people that came to the very first Zephyr game of the year when it was so crappy. Jared, French, Mayor, RG, Z, Jayla, and Jeremy were all there from South Hill.
Nice.
And we were having a great time. We did relocate down to the lower deck. I'm not going to lie. Someone's seats we took, some poor person.
Make them stop you.
That's right. Come get us. Yep. And then the second game, Matt Allen, Matt Martin, Gabe, and Nick were all together. We were all sat together, and that was a ton of fun.
All South Hill FC dorks?
All South Hill FC dorks, man.
Let's go.
It was a great time. We just had a fantastic fun time. Yeah.
When do you guys start back up?
We won't start playing on the South Hill until mid-April. We always like to honor the SYSA schedules, and they put the goals out and they get the field ready and all that kind of jazz. And so we run from mid-April to the end of October usually. Yeah. So here we got a couple weeks to go.
So Mayor, Z. We've got a couple Nigerian cats among us.
Absolutely.
How stoked are they about Lucky Opara joining the club?
Well, we were talking all about it. They don't know him, but they're friends with Andre Lewis. And so I think they're going to welcome him into that crew. You know what I mean? And I'm sure with the Nigerian background and some of the Nigerian Eto and Mayor and some of these guys from Nigeria, definitely like to welcome him to the Nigerian community. And of course, Lucky, you're always welcome at the South Hill. We will take care of you, my friend.
Oh, we're going to double down on what we did last summer.
Oh, absolutely.
We have to, because now we've got our 3 West Indies boys and we've got Lucky. We've got some other, the international crew for that team is just growing so much. So, all right, cool.
Nice.
Let's take a quick break. When we return, we're going to talk all about Zephyr FC's victory over DC Power on Saturday. The presenting sponsor of the Spokane Soccer Show is Flat Stick Pub, the best pub experience in the state of Washington. Local craft beer and wine, signature cocktails, brick oven baked pizza, Bavarian pretzels, and the best watch parties for our beloved Zephyr and Velocity FC. If you're not there with me watching soccer, grab a putter and play some mini golf or duffel board or check out the golf simulator. I have to say, as a disgustingly competitive person myself, there's literally nothing more entertaining than having a beverage and flexing on your friends in a game of mini golf. It's a perfect icebreaker too. Maybe first date. I think they won a Best of Inlander for first date, which makes a ton of sense. You'll never have a socially awkward moment again if you spend your social outings at Flatstick. Don't take my word for it. Head down to Flatstick in downtown Spokane or go to flatstickpub.com to book a tea time or check out their latest tap list. The Spokane Soccer Show is supported by Spokane City Credit Union. Are you still a member of a big dumb bank? Didn't I tell you to stop it? I don't even have to tell you which banks I mean. You all know the ones I'm talking about. Well, once upon a time, credit unions were wisely described as a not-for-profit, not-for-charity, but
for service, and SCCU still holds that philosophy today. At a bank, you're just a customer. At a credit union, you're both a member and a shareholder. Throughout 2025, I will be updating my listeners about SCCU's commitment to the Greater Spokane Parks Challenge. Speaking of great parks, first up is our crown jewel, aka Riverfront Park. Be sure to join me and our friends at the Northwest Autism Center on April 26th down at the Ice Age Playground for the annual 5K Walk, Run, or Roll Steps for Autism. Come join us to celebrate community, inclusion, and awareness of autism by registering now at stepsforautism.org.
All right, let's talk about Saturday's game. Zephyr FC versus DC Power. It finished 3 for Zephyr FC, only 2 for DC Power. There were 2,073 people there in attendance. And according to what I was able to find out, there were 2,015 at the Carolina Ascent game. So, you know what? It was really cold. And I remember last year, it was early on, we had, of course, a sellout in the first ever game at one stadium. But then when Northern Colorado came to town, I do remember, and it was around this time, and there was a playoff happening, or the Chiefs were on the verge of making the playoffs, and they only pulled like 3,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
And this is when
the Chiefs did play Saturday.
And the Chiefs did play Saturday, and we really, really did have the new stadium smell still going for us at the time. Mm-hmm. And there were still only like 3,000 people. So I don't really take these numbers too much to heart. It was genuinely miserable. I couldn't sell it to people. People were like, they're going to play soccer in this? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, ugh, no, thank you. Let's talk about the game. I'm going to give you a little bit of context. First, I'm going to take us back in time and talk about the last couple games, because I had a lot of things to get off my chest. I know Jamie has had a lot of thoughts about the last 2 games, the first, the one in Dallas, and then the one last weekend against the loss against Carolina coming into Saturday's game. So a couple weeks ago, to kick off the spring portion of the schedule for Zephyr FC, they played against Dallas Trinity. I've gone on record. I think Dallas Trinity is one of the 2 best. I've mostly thought they were the best team in the league. So when they were able to go down there and get that 1-0 result, I thought it was super, super impressive. And it was, but there's some caveats. Dallas completely and utterly shit down their leg.
Yeah.
They were bad. They had some new players. They had 2 new loanees from Washington Spirit. They have a college player who was so decorated in her career with University of Texas, Lexi Misimo, that she would have been probably a top 3 pick in the NWSL draft.
Wow. It
was a shocking statement from the USL Super League to get this player. And she's really talented, but she's still, brand new to the team or whatever. We caught them on the most off of off days, because for the first 10 minutes of that game, the way I would characterize it is it looked like we were sick because we were so bad. We were sloppy in possession. We were sloppy out of possession. We were doing everything to,
We looked like we had a really long break and didn't do much during that time.
And we're going to get to the weather again, because the weather's going to play a factor in how we talk about both Zephyr and Velocity. But something happened around minute 10 or 15 of that game. And is like, I thought it looked like we were contagious, and we gave whatever it was we had to Dallas, and they were zombified for the rest of the game because they were so bad. So on the one hand, we took what was given to us by Dallas, but Dallas gave us a lot. Great goal. Emma Jaskinik setting up Katie Murray. Katie Murray is becoming the best finisher on this team. I think unquestionably right now. And so here they are. They come back to this home opener that I missed. I was in Great Falls, Montana, but I did watch it twice now. That was one of the worst performances that Zephyr FC have had so far. So coming into Saturday's game, I'm going somewhere with this. I'm not going to try to recap all these games. Are you guys familiar with the horrible, common in Europe term of the dead cat bounce?
No, you mentioned that before, and I meant to look it up because I was like, I don't know what these.
Yeah, the whole.
Is this an Alaska thing?
I think I've heard it, but I don't
the
really
world of like European media says this all the time. When a manager gets fired, that whoever replaces that manager, because that team has fallen so far, they can get what's called the dead cat bounce, which is like meaning even a dead cat will bounce if it's dropped from high enough. And if a team has fallen so far down the table, right? So DC Power got rid of their, it's not great. Here's what I mean by this. DC Power were the worst team, I think, have been the worst team in the Super League. They fired their first coach, Frederic Briand, and hired a coach named Phil Nana, who is trying to get the proverbial dead cat bounce. Did not get it against Lexington. They lost 2-1 in their first game with Phil Nana named officially the head coach. I think he was interim before that. So coming into Saturday's game, I think it was an opportunity for Zephyr FC to make a statement. So with that, I'm going to ask you both for your thoughts of what you saw in that game.
Do I think it was a
Just
statement?
Generally, yeah.
I mean, we got the points.
We got the points. Which is great.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I don't feel like it was a statement, and it was tough because after the loss to Carolina, I felt pretty bummed, and so I came in with lower expectations, and I think I would have had this game been played immediately after Dallas. I would have been like, let's go. That should have been the statement. And so I was pretty nervous going into it. So the fact that we got 3 points, great.
Yeah.
It did not feel definitive. It looked like the game could have gotten away from us very easily at any moment.
Yeah.
And we got the 3 points on a stellar free kick by an individual effort. That's not how you make a statement. That's how a player makes a statement.
Yeah. So far, Amina Ekic has had to put on a cape to rescue the team.
You would
a few
text that,
times.
and it's rough.
Yeah.
It's a rough thing to have to rely on.
But although, in fairness, now 2 out of the last 3 games, Emma Jaskinik has provided assistance to a goal by Katie Murray. So maybe that's a trend. Scott, what were your thoughts about the game?
Kind of the same moments of individual greatness. And they really I feel like they relied upon their talent a lot, not upon their tactics. And I really don't understand the tactical side. And I'll get really technical for just a moment. And this could just be my ignorance. I don't understand what the winger play is, but the wingers are too close to the center, but not far, like too close to be part of the play, but not far enough out to be free and running, and they would stay there very consistently. We sat and watched them so many times. Like, why are they exactly in the same spot on both sides? And you just want to push them either forward or draw them closer, one of the two, because they weren't like in kind of that no person's land out there where there's just not really useful. And that was really baffling to me. Now, again, my ignorance, fair enough. Okay, could be that, but why aren't the wingers running? We sat and watched the multiple times when a ball could have been sent to the right where there's a runner up both lanes, and it wasn't, and I don't know why. It could have been a weather thing, it could have been a wind thing, could have been a variety of things, but that's 2 games where I didn't understand why the wingers were playing the way they were. So it comes back to the individual excellence. Murray's goal, which was really a really nice goal, and then Ekic's goal. We sat in the stands and you could see the lane. I mean, they set up whoever the goalie was set up the wall, and it's like weird spot, and she's got a left foot curl. I'm like, oh, bag it, man.
Perfect.
This is over. Yeah. And she nailed it. So individual excellence. Tactical, I was confused by the tactics, but that's where we're at.
Let's start with a little bit of like where the lack of sharpness is coming from. And I'll just get this out of the way for both teams. Spring season's beginning for Zephyr, brand new season for Velocity. Both teams have been affected by the fact that we had the horrible snow dump. And that was right before Zephyr played their first game, and they also had 2 of their players go on international duty, Amina and Sophie Braun. So, there's the sharpness isn't there. And a lot of the teams that play in the Southeast don't have that disadvantage when bad weather for them would be 45 or 50 degrees for the most part. Right.
Yeah.
And they can still train. So I think it looks like a team that's still lacking not just potentially match fitness, but certainly match sharpness. So with that said, though, that's the one caveat I'll throw out there for both teams, especially because it was Velocity's first game of 2025. What happened against Carolina? Carolina drew Zephyr offside 7 times.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think most of that was because they were playing high and they were compact. And they were trying to trap, and it worked.
That's not what I was yelling at the referees, by the way. That it was
by the way, no, I'm talking about the Carolina game, not the DC Power. No. Okay. And then against DC Power, they played a 4-4-2. At least I thought it was a 4-4-2. And I was talking to Mike, who was standing next to me, and he was like, "Actually, if you notice that when they're in possession, that right back is going up the wing, so the left back would stay home, which is where Kenzie Weinert was trying to make all those runs over the top. So." As a result of that, all those balls over the top, instead of Kenzie being drawn off, they were just, the passes weren't there. They were going out over the end line for goal kicks. And we did have the fortune of DC Power being quite terrible at handling goal kicks. They started to figure things out more in the second half when they switched wings. Amina went onto the right, and then Reese Tappan, the brand new fullback who made her debut, she had some nice stuff happening with overlapping runs down the right. But then the weighted passes, I talked to Amina after the game. I was like, was it tough? And she said, yeah, the ball was behaving so weird.
It was so swirly. The wind was so swirly because you could watch the corner flags. We kept watching them, and they would switch. You know what I mean? So I think it was a mess.
It was. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I was arguing with somebody in our section about it because I was like, I don't understand why that ball went out because the wind is, I see this flag going this way. And he goes, well, look at that flag. And I was like, well, shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. So, but that's, I mean, both teams are dealing with that.
Oh, for sure.
It's you know, it becomes not, we start to rely on excuses. I feel like watching the Carolina game, we had I brought some friends to that game who don't watch soccer. And their first comment was, are we small as a team? And I was like, well, I suppose we might be on average, but we also didn't send out our height. Yeah. Against I mean, if you scouted that team, they had some pretty tall players. And so there were some, I think, also tactic things I was questioning as far as.
Against Carolina in particular, they have a few 6-footers, approaching 6-footers.
And in our goals, definitely one of those goals was.
One of those goals was on a corner kick, zonal marking. Katie Murray was spinning like a top trying to mark a player that's like she was giving up probably half a foot to. Yeah. And this kid had a free header. And, you know, that was a game where I think that the decision to start Sophie Braun at center half didn't pay off insofar as that goes. But I do think it was far more affecting and effective against DC Power. I thought that the recycling possession, just the poise at the back, et cetera, looked so much better against DC Power than it did against Carolina. Carolina were far more disciplined defensively. Right. So
what do you do going into a stronger team?
Yeah, exactly. But Carolina's kind of unique that way. They've been doing this all year, scoring goals with their center halves and using their height and their physicality. And it's one of those things where on a different day, if you were more tactically sharp and your passes were crisper, your first touches were better, because that was something I have to observe about the DC Power game is we had a lot of hospital balls out there and a lot of bad first touches. And again, who knows how much of a factor the weather was, but I'm going to go over some of the goals though, because I just want to talk about them because
Let's talk about Katie Murray's first goal.
They're really fun. Yeah. So
it's a great goal.
One of the rare moments, where our midfield was actually ahead of their markers. Haley Thomas, it provides a pass to Emma in the half space. Emma draws the attention of 3 players, squares it for Katie Murray, who uses the outside of her foot just to create a little narrow window of space. Top of the box, goes for placement. She falls down. I love this. This is the best thing. It's such a Katie Murray's personality at its absolute pinnacle. She falls down when she strikes the ball. It pings in off the left post and goes in. It's a fantastic finish. And she falls to the ground and just points up until her teammates pick her up to realize that, And
that's how you knew she struck it so well, because she came across her body. She got enough of a look to see where the keeper was positioned, and brilliant play. I mean, I feel like she has come into her own in this last few games.
Totally.
Last season, she had started in a few different positions, and so maybe wasn't finding the right space. And this season, it's caught fire, and she crossed that across her body to the left side. And what was great is by her being off the ground, knows that she struck it well. She struck it properly. She didn't keep that trailing foot on the ground. She put her entire swinging foot, because if she had stayed planted, guaranteed that would have squared up towards the keeper, and the keeper would have had a shot at blocking it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what put it in.
She's becoming analogous to the people who are listening to this podcast that aren't going to Zephyr games yet. This is one of the ways I'm going to needle you to do so. I would say she's becoming the equivalent of Andre Lewis on the Zephyr team for me, of just somebody who I think has an outsized role in midfield in particular, and work rate, creativity, cleverness, and tenacious. I just really, really admire her as a player. This is something to build on. It's it's not an accident that for the second time in 3 games, Emma Jaskinik has provided service to Katie Murray, who has finished from somewhere. So second goal, long throw in, deep down the right touch line for DC Power. It's the start of the second half. And at the start of the second half, I was just like, we look like we're still in the dressing room. This is not going well. DC Power came out on the front foot. The ball ends up to the center forward, this Ethiopian international player named Loza Abera. And Zephyr's caught ball watching. I counted at least 2 players that were just kind of watching the ball. So they don't notice a run by Gianna Gorley, a forward for DC Power. Abera provides a through ball. Gorley sends in a cross. Hope Heisey can't hold on to it. And the winger for DC, Anna Bagley, is trailing the play, slams home the ball from 6 yards out. And it was mostly just a goal that looked like we were And this is something that has been a problem, just turned off for a solid 5 to 10 minutes to where that goal felt inevitable. Since the restart, I was just like, what?
Yeah, that's the one. I mean, Heisey coughed it up a little, but it was a hard struck ball, right? That's
totally
his goal.
Yeah.
So great. She should get hands on it. And I don't know if the defenders were thinking, oh, she has it and they gave up, but you shouldn't be doing that. You should be tracking the entire time. And I agree. I think if I recall, that's what happened was that free Bagley who ran in had nobody close to her. And it's because whoever was initially tracking that first player, there was 3 back all running, not watching. Someone's got to stop and turn around and see
They didn't see the run by Gurley because they were caught ball watching and paying attention to the center forward. And that's a center forward's job. And this is something that this Ethiopian player did such a great job at.
Yeah. She
just drew so much attention. Big physical player, just classic back to goal center forward. Goal number 3, it ends up Zephyr are attacking with 7 players high up the pitch. Okay. Taylor Almer passes the ball to the feet of Ali Cook. I think it was a mistake to make this pass. Ali Cook, speaking of big center forwards who want to have their back to goal. Okay. She's fantastic at this. She couldn't have seen that there were 3 players getting ready to press her. And I think Taylor shouldn't have passed that ball to her there. So she's dispossessed and the break is on. And who does the ball end up at the feet of? Once again, it's Loza Abera. She's very clever. She spots that Sophie's still pretty high up the pitch. Abera picks out a run by Gurley, who is splitting the center backs. It's a foot race. Hope Heisey comes off her line.
This is the chip.
Yeah, she comes off her line. Did she think she could get to it? She couldn't. And Gorley's a really good player.
Yeah, it was a beautiful chip.
It really was. So she toe pokes it and it just goes over the outstretched arms of Hope Heisey. And then suddenly we're down 2-1. And at that point, I'm already thinking, what am I going to chat about after this game? Because this is a really important game. There are 2 teams that are struggling and are in terms of points and where they're at in the table. And DC Power has already gone through a manager. And 2 minutes later, though, minute 65, corner kick taken by Amina, back post to Haley Thomas, heads the ball across the goal, deflects off a defender. Kenzie volleys it into a defender. I think it was kind of a tough call because it was so close, but I'm glad that we got the call because we've not gotten tons of them. If anybody remembers Kenzie getting destroyed by the Dallas Trinity keeper once upon a time at one stadium. So it's a penalty. The goalkeeper, Adelaide Gay, goes the wrong direction and Amina calmly slots the ball into the net. And it's suddenly 2-2. Then it's like game on. Mm-hmm. And at this point, what were your thoughts going into the last, we'll call it 15, 20 minutes when the weather became more and more miserable. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I didn't know where we were going to get our chances from.
And I think we talked about this before with the weather. We talked about this before the game. What I want to see in that condition, which we weren't necessarily doing, is start firing off shots from deep. Yeah. Because it's going to be hard to handle for either keeper.
It's one thing that Marley Canales does.
You're right. And now we've seen it a bit from Katie Murray, right? Yeah. So I was hoping to see that, and we weren't. We were still pushing with the same style of play as we had started the game. And I was pretty nervous we were going to end up in a draw.
Yeah.
And probably, without a foul, that's what would have happened. I don't think we were destined to score.
We ultimately depended on a set piece. I do want to point out one moment that's not a goal, and it was minute 72, Ali Cook. Sophie pings a ball perfect over the top, takes one bounce, and it's over the back line, the center half for DC Power, lunges and misses, and it takes one hop, and then Ali Cook hits it off the half volley. Yeah. And I had a moment of thinking, and I remember talking to you because you were right next to me. I was like, should she have taken a touch? I'm not quite sure. If she had taken a touch.
No way, man. Hit that right away. I thought it was.
I
agree. And
it hit that on the bounce.
It barely went over the bar.
Barely.
Yeah.
The only thing that I could have defended to taking a touch and pulling it down onto her toe, onto her foot and trying to control the ball with a first touch would have been that because she was in the box at that point,
dropping
would that defender have gone into the back of her?
Maybe, but that bounce perfect for her.
You need to be confident as a striker to take that touch.
I'm with you, 100%. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, because if that goal goes in, that's a fantastic. Yeah. I mean, she hit it good too.
And she's got the skills. I mean, she just missed it.
I totally agree.
That's rust. I don't know.
Yeah,
I would take the extra touch. I don't have the skills.
I would not take the extra touch.
But I'm also not a center forward.
Yeah, I would hit that.
Yeah, exactly.
Time. But then our moment does happen. And my favorite part about this, because we saw this free kick, we saw the highlight of it, 150 times since it happened. was that Molly Rouse is the one who earned it. It was off of a free kick or a corner, one of the two. Mm-hmm. And the ball ends up, it's a second ball. It's up in the air. She's 50-50 and it's a challenge right on the edge of the box, but she just gets completely murdered.
Yeah.
And I at first thought, okay, two things. One, I thought it was a penalty. At first,
in the box.
I was losing my mind. I was like, I can't believe it. But Zephyr players weren't really protesting, so
I didn't think it was in the box.
Okay.
Our angle was such that I thought she was just out of the box, but she got hammered. And I was like, props to her because jumping in, because there was two players that she was jumping into.
Yeah. But that kid wiped her out, and it looked painful. I was like,
on a cold day, hitting the turf.
No shot. No. But the second thing I thought immediately was that ball could not have been in a better location for somebody like Amina Ekic.
Yeah.
So I was like, wait a minute, is that as good as a pen? If she beats the wall, we're probably cooking here.
Yeah, I actually didn't see the post. Did you interview her after that?
Yeah.
But did you ask her about the kick? Was she salivating at it? Because I would like to know.
100%.
Yeah.
She saw, as soon as she walked, we were watching her because we were just like literally right in line.
Yeah.
And when she walked up, she waved. Somebody walked up and they were kind of chatting. She just waved, and you could just see her preparing perfectly.
Yeah.
And like, don't say anything. Don't tip them off. Don't do anything.
Yeah. Pretend I'm right-footed. Yeah, she actually angled a little bit. I think she did, yeah.
Yeah, which was all brilliant.
Because I had a moment going, wait, is she lefty? Is she righty?
Oh, yeah.
The way I watched her walk up. Oh, man.
Yeah, she angled it to make it look like it was a little, to keep the wall where it was.
God bless Amina.
Such a great kick.
It was so fantastic. It's worth pointing out Adelaide Gay, who started over Morgan Aquino. Morgan Aquino we have faced before.
Oh, yeah.
And I think she's a pretty capable keeper.
That was
So this was an interesting decision. I'm not sure if it was the first time that Adelaide Gay has started over Morgan Aquino, but she did. And she had her work cut out for her this game. And it was tough to face a player like Amina Ekic because of that left foot. It was definitely a couple things. It was poor wall management because she put her wall in a place where she was just, by the time that Amina was actually on her run up, she was unsighted by her own wall.
Yeah.
Then she shifted her weight because she was, I think, guessing that Amina was going to go near post, and then she went far post, and she guessed, she kind of lunged one direction and then, oh no. And then it was too late.
Yeah.
And had she guessed the correct direction and had she not been unsighted by the wall, she would have gotten to it.
Maybe.
After that goal, pandemonium. Ali Cook for me was a unsung hero. I just want to say that.
Solid.
Jennifer Cujo from DC Power was awesome. She had 7 takeaways, 2 tackles, 5 interceptions. Taylor Almer for Zephyr had the inverse of that. She had 7 takeaways from 5 tackles and 2 interceptions. I thought she had a pretty strong game as well.
So who do you start in the next game?
This time, I think you have to run it back. Okay, let's take one more quick break. And when we return, we're going to talk about Velocity FC's 2-2 draw with 1 Knox on Sunday.
The Spokane Soccer Show would not be possible without the support of Feast World Kitchen. You know what else wouldn't be possible without Feast World Kitchen? Mouth-watering cuisine from every region of planet Earth. That's what. Feast is a nonprofit that helps immigrants and former refugees in our community become chef entrepreneurs. Barbacoa tacos, yum Korean fried chicken, ashak dumplings, lasagna bolognese, warbat bilishta, mango mousse. That's just a few of the delicious dishes being served up during restaurant week. And lucky you, because Feast is open every week from Wednesday through Sunday on 3rd Avenue in downtown Spokane. To learn more about Feast World Kitchen, their current menu, or to order some of that delicious food online, go to feastworldkitchen.org. It fills me with joy to announce that Wildland Co-op is a sponsor of the Spokane Soccer Show. What is Wildland Co-op? Wildland is a small farm, it's a brewery, it's a winery, and it's a local goods market. 20 varieties of beer on tap, guaranteed to be something you're going to dig. A range of fantastic wines and tasty non-alcoholic beverages. So pull up an Adirondack chair on their cherry tree patio and take in all those yummy flavors amidst sweeping views of Green Bluff and the foothills of Mount Spokane. There is literally not a better place in the 509 to gawk at the warm, dreamlike skies during golden hour. I've almost run out of room on my phone taking photos of it. That's actually a true story. The Wildland Co-op is family friendly. Everybody's welcome. And if you'll recall, last year, their head brewer, Michael, took me up on the idea of making a signature beer for the Spokane Soccer Show. Remember the Double Pivot Pub Ale? We're doing it again this year, folks. No announcements yet, but stay tuned. We're going to do a different beer. We don't even know what we're going to do yet, but we're going to do something really cool. For more information, go to their website or follow them on Instagram, Wildland Co-op. That's wildland.coop.
Velocity FC 2, 1 Knox 2, 2,400 people showed up. Weather not as bad as Saturday in terms of rain or hail, but it was definitely colder. I'm going to compare this game to the way I felt watching Newcastle try to hold on to their 2-0 lead over Liverpool in the Carabao Cup, because like in that game, we went up 2-0 against 1 Knox and then hit a wall, a fitness wall, to where virtually everybody out there either looked sloppy or leggy or exhausted or all of the above in the last 30 minutes of the game. Quick narrative setup. It's our first game, obviously. There's 8 newcomers on the team. Only one of them made a start, and it was Siobhan John Brown. Interestingly enough, who comes to town for 1 Knox, starting on the right for that club, but Camarnie Smith. So basically, we just swapped right wingers, and 1 Knox now has Camarnie Smith, and we have Siobhan John Brown. I feel pretty good about that, even after Sunday's game. Start us off. What are your kind of takeaways, without even talking about the big moments? What are your kind of takeaways of what you saw?
Okay, I didn't feel too bad about it. I felt the first half of the game was highly defensive, a lot of great slide tackles. I mean, a lot of rough play and
very competitive.
Very competitive. The ref, I was okay with. He let it go both ways. Okay, I'm fine with that. Right. But a lot of great slide tackles. Welcome back, Colin Fernandez. Oh, my gosh. You know what I mean? That was the Colin Fernandez that he's like the Katie Murray. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It just everywhere. Little Andre Lewis in there, too. But, so I thought a lot of the players had decent games for the first game back. And I felt like up until the point when they ran out of gas and they brought in the new signings that weren't cohesive, then that led to the late goal that just kind of fell, those late goals. But I felt fairly optimistic. Like, I can see the talent on the team. I can see what they're trying to do. And at moments they looked okay, and at moments they didn't look so great. But that was kind of my take on the game. I thought if they get a little more cohesive than when they're offensive attack, I feel like, hey, we're going to be all right. That was my take. I know you had maybe a little different, but
yeah. What'd you think, Jamie? I
definitely felt optimism. I would say, actually, compared to the win with Zephyr, where it was a win, but I still felt
shaky,
nervous. This was a tie that I did feel optimistic. Like, oh, the future still looks really, really good.
Yeah, like Vinyals comes in, and I'm like, wow, this cat can move. You know what I mean? You get some of these new players that come in, and like Colin Fernandez, just he played good at times. Really good at times. I thought.
Colin was great until he was totally exhausted.
Yeah, his first half was awesome.
Then it was obvious. It was like, they got to get him out here.
And then he caught the ball coming off the bench for a yellow card, which was really awesome.
Was it him? We couldn't tell from where we were.
Total reaction play. He just jumps up, catches the ball, and like, come on.
And my favorite part is he looked down and he realized where he was, and he was like, oh God. And he was like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Mea culpa. Please just make it a yellow. Yeah. Please don't make it something worse.
So I'm excited. I'm excited for game 2. That's kind of how I was looking at it. I just felt like there was more there to work with.
Yeah.
Whereas with the Zephyr game, they squeezed every bit out of what they had,
Colin in particular had one 2-footed challenge where I was like, thank God this ref is calling it the way he is, because yes, I think it went both ways, but I think it overall very much favored the style of 1 Knox as a team.
Javier Heel he cleaned a guy out on the right side. It just took the ball from him, slow tackle, got back up, kept dribbling. It was
that was
a
great.
slide tackle that leads to nice. Being in control of the ball is my favorite thing in the world.
Trapped right there with your feet. Yeah. That was beautiful.
There was a couple of those kind of similar type plays during this game that it was almost like, wow, this is like a really defensively cool game to watch.
Yeah, I think 125 went nuts with that one because we had such a good view of it.
So good. I think I've said this about Javier Martin Hill before, that he's a technical tackler. One thing I want to say about Luis really quickly that I just kind of marveled at a few times. For one thing, it was not a game where our creative engine was working whatsoever. We didn't really generate much in terms of threat attacking. But just the overall competitive intensity of the game. But Luis had these couple moments. I don't know if you guys caught this, but in his link up play with Masongo where he was like chesting the ball into space.
Yeah,
he did it
that was
like
a great
multiple
play.
times and then put in a couple tackles and stuff that I was just like, that's a part of Luis's game that I think is just a little bit underrated. Also, Neil Vinyals, to your point, came in and we got to see his defensive quality. The goals in swinging corner, 40th minute, Derek Waldeck. Cameron Miller was just bigger, stronger, and had more desire. He literally bullied 3 defenders out of his way like he was in a Black Friday sale.
Someone hit the gym in the off season.
Dude, did you think
he
that?
felt bigger?
Yeah.
He felt
Right?
so much stronger. He looked like, whoa. This is like almost like a kid that comes back for his senior year in high school and he's hit the gym.
100%. I was like, he's swole.
Dude.
And he came from open tryouts, people. He came from
Yeah.
open tryouts.
Cameron
Did he
Miller.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
In the Seattle tryouts last year.
Let's go.
Cameron was just bawling. Near post, bullet header. The one Knox keeper just like did the pout and like threw his hands down. And I watched that replay and I was just laughing because the keeper just like looked really just like mad. Like, damn you. 47th minute after the restart, going to the half, 1-0. Another corner, another in-swinger, golden ball from Derek Waldeck. This one's controversial. So at the time, I get this video, and I didn't even realize I uploaded this to Instagram yesterday, and it had my stupid yelling audio in it of me like, let's go, and then also like speculating, was that an Olympico? Or was that Siobhan John Brown? Because Siobhan John Brown, after the goal, comes over and does the best celebration ever. He puts his knee down so Derek can put his foot up there and he does the shoe shine. So clever. It was a great celebration. But there was a player, a midfielder named Mikkel Goling, a 6'3" Danish midfielder.
Who was a baller, by the way.
They credited him with an own goal. And I got to be honest with you, I don't think it hit him. I think it hit a player, but I think it was already into the goal.
I think it was going into the goal. They shouldn't have called it an own goal because it was curling in. It skinned his head just like.
Yeah, but also, no matter, I know.
I think it was going in.
I don't know how to answer this. Like on an Olympico, because typically a deflection that's goal bound is not, but because it's not intentionally a shot. But how
do you know?
say?
How do you know? Maybe he did that.
Have you
When it
met
goes in,
Derek
it's
Waldeck?
always-
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Every time they go in, it's intentional.
It's always intentional.
Because the worst part about this is I don't even think he's going to get an assist.
Yeah. It was a great goal.
Yeah.
we
It was
know in
a-
our hearts, Derek.
It was a great goal.
It was Olympico.
And this is where things turn bad. This is where it looks like we ran completely out of gas. We start giving up a lot of the ball. We cannot construct an attack, but there's still like 40 minutes left in the game. Wiedemann does bring on a couple of the new players, starting with Lucky Opara and then later Nico Brett, our new center forward. But got to be honest, none of the players that came in, other than Nil, I thought Nil did stand out a bit to me as like doing some pretty good stuff. Like his just poise and his on-ball ability and his read of the game. So minute 60, it's a throw-in for One Knox deep down the right. The fullback for One Knox, who I'm going to come back to, Jaheim Brown, takes the throw-in, immediately receives the ball back from his teammate, takes one touch before whipping in a left-footed cross. And the same player dubiously credited with that own goal, Mikkel Goling, he's being marked pretty closely by Marcelo, but still manages to throw a leg in the air and just get a touch on it. Now, this is
It's like a lumberjack foot chop down.
yeah, it's odd. He just kind of, it's like he threw a dead leg at it. It was very odd, but it hit it. And this is where things get a little weird. Okay. I know we've talked about this in the past. I'm trying not to go there after one game, but that Marcelo and Carlos communication. Carlos is down low in a stance like he's watching for the cross to make sure it's not going to be a cross to the back post or a shot. A forward for One Knox, this Irish international player named Mark Doyle, is making a run on the back post. Admittedly, Javier Martin Hill is caught ball watching. He's watching that cross. Doyle slips in behind him. Carlos looks like he's expecting a deflection or a clearance to the back post, but just gets run over by Doyle. And it's in the back of the net. And I looked at it a few times and it made me not feel great about that moment of like, that was a soft goal. Maybe the guy was a little bit fortunate, but how was he able to get a leg up on that ball? I don't know. I did not feel great about that goal. At this point, we're just trying to see the game out for the next 30 minutes though, and preserve the win. But Knox are just coming at us in waves. 2 clearances over the end line, one by Cam Miller, one by Marcelo Lage. Were nearly own goals. I was doing the same thing I was doing at my house while Newcastle was trying to kill off time and win that Carabao Cup final. I was just pacing. Then here comes the killer. 90+1 midfielder who came on for Kamarni, a Greek player named Zarakostas, has too much time on the ball, and it's admittedly Nil Vinyals who's marking him. He picks out a run from a Honduran midfielder, so it's all Fernando Diaz's fault. Angelo Kelly. Again, Carlos looks like he's a little bit worried about far post, so he's off his line in weird position. Did you guys think this goal was offside?
On our side, we did.
Okay.
We definitely let the AR have it.
Yeah.
I don't, but it was ahead of us, so I could be wrong. But it looks pretty off.
I couldn't know.
You can't see it on the TV angle.
Our angle was terrible.
I think they have the TV angle, but they didn't show it to us on the stream.
They were ahead of us. So, we're midfield. They were 20 yards, I think, on the attacking side. It looked pretty off. We were pretty close. Again, we have a little bit of a back angle, but it looked really off.
Colin said he thought Lucky may have played him on. So it was Lucky and David Garcia, the two former Northern Colorado defenders that we added to the team. Yeah, it's tough. I can't blame that one on Carlos. He was a little bit off his line, looking at the back post again. So
it was a nice goal too.
Yeah, he just got a sneaky touch, but again, near post, sneaky little touch.
I feel like we talked about this last year when Velocity started, and when we had the syndicate was behind the goal. I remember the first thing I thought about Carlos was that he was really quiet, and
he's not very vocal.
No, and I remember Jonathan was here too, who was a goalkeeper, and I was like, for me as a defender, I want keepers who are vocal, who are lining things up, and if without that, I struggle for how does the team know where to go defensively? Like, how can they see the field? Because that is the person who can see everything at all times. And if they're not confident in directing traffic in the right way, and not saying that that's where the fault lies, but I always get nervous when keepers are quiet. I like a keeper that feels commanding. I don't know.
He did have, I looked at a couple of the moments where it did look like he's kind of got happy feet. On two of those clearances, the ones that were almost own goals, one of them, Carlos kind of laid on his back after the ball went over the bar and it was struck by Marcelo. And don't you want him to pop up at that moment and yell at his defenders to do a better job and just get in their face and say, knock this off? Why is it coming to this? Yell at your entire back line. Don't even pick on your center halves. Yell at everybody back there in your vicinity.
You got to have someone in the back line. If you look at Liverpool, for instance, Van Dijk's that person. He's very vocal, but you got to have the one person that is incredibly vocal. And I don't see that necessarily out of Lodge or out of the goalkeeper.
Right.
And so maybe David Garcia coming in will be that vocal person. I don't know.
Yeah. It needs to be somebody if it's not the keeper. Somebody. Yeah.
Because what was happening at that time is that ball after ball was being pinged in across his box. And if I'm Carlos, instead of laying down on the goal, I would pop up and scream at whoever is allowing and not closing down on those wingers who are whipping in those balls. Anyways, it's something to keep a note of, but again, it's just one game. I thought Cameron Miller, stupendous. He looked to be in incredibly good shape, led the team in defensive actions with 23 of them. The next player was a one Knox player named Jordan Skelton, who only had 13. He had 17 clearances, 2 blocks, 2 interceptions, 9 duels won, including 7 in the air. Oh, and he scored a goal.
Well, maybe Cam Miller, like he's come this far and become this type of player, and he's gone to the gym and worked out, and he looks great. All right, now next task, level 2, become the vocal center back. Right, maybe that's his job. Maybe that's the thing to become the next level for him.
Well, from the conversation with John Morrissey, we kind of expect David Garcia to be that vocal player too. But he played for 20 minutes yesterday, and it was came on late. So, any other thoughts about the game?
Looking forward to the next one.
Yeah.
14 fouls by one Knox, 7 by Spokane. Ooh. I think that style of play very much benefited one Knox. Even on the highlights package, you guys, Luis Hill just gets run into from Angelo Kelly, just runs right into the back of him.
There's some bad ones.
Didn't he? I watched it in real time. It happened. And Luis just looks up like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, there was a number of them we were struggling with.
The one over the back, the header over the back, that was that was as obvious as there is, right?
Neither one of our strikers got much service, just one touch apiece in the opponent's box. One shot for either striker, and it was Anwar Pelaez, and it was blocked.
Josh Doling is somewhere laughing his ass off.
We did not. It's too soon. We did not require a save of the one Knox keeper. Just want to point that out. There were 3 Jamaican players out on the pitch yesterday, and the one that I could not stop praising was Jaheim Brown, 23-year-old fullback from Kingston, like Nico and Andre, all 3 from Kingston, and he was outstanding. I loved that player. So keep an eye on that young 23-year-old fullback for one Knox. He's a really good player. I do think that Knox is going to be one of the better teams in League One, though. After the game, I chatted with Lee, and he had the following to say: not happy with the point, but you could see us falling off around minute 60, which is when they started to get a good grip of the game. Lots of positives to take away. It just feels worse because we dropped the lead. We have to reflect, recover, get ready for a tough battle in Seattle on Wednesday. And that is that for that game. And for the weekend.
You're going to be there Wednesday?
Yep, let's talk about it. The U.S. Open Cup starts on Wednesday, opening round, and we are once again playing against Ballard FC. If you haven't seen my troll video that I dropped on Instagram, it came out this morning. It's pretty amusing. I had fun making it.
And Ballard FC's late signed Kellen Rowe.
Kellen Rowe, MLS legend.
Bring it. Hey, Kellen Rowe he's been out of the game for a lot of years. Bring it, Kellen Rowe. Let's see what happens.
He hasn't. It's only like 1 year.
Well, it's long enough.
I wish it was. It's not an Aussie situation. So Aussie joined Des Moines Menace.
I heard that.
With all those other old timers, but Aussie's 39. Like,
ancient.
No, Kellen Rowe he's still not that old.
Kellen Rowe's 33, dude.
Come on.
He's going to be like the Roman Metanir. I don't like this at all. And I made my troll video, all you Ballard people out there, after that news of Kellen Rowe signing.
Yeah, and whoever from Ballard put a sticker in our bathroom from Ballard FC. I mean, yeah, they had that happen. Well, that happened.
Those bastards.
I know.
I love it. It's awesome. Zephyr FC will be playing against Tampa Bay on that same evening, Wednesday at 4 p.m. So we're going to travel over. I'm going, and I'm going to try to get over there in time to catch at least a portion of the Zephyr game from Flatstick Pub in South Lake Union. Okay. And then we're going to shuttle over, thank you to the Largents, to Interbay Stadium. Jamie's going.
I'm going.
Scott?
I'll be watching from here, my friend.
Come on. Get your ass over there.
I'm going to try to haul ass and get there,
Yeah. And then Zephyr will travel to Fort Lauderdale on Saturday at the same time, 4 p.m. I don't know if that's 4 p.m. our time or theirs, but you have to check your listings, whatever. And then Velocity FC are going to host newcomers to League One, Naples FC at One Stadium this upcoming weekend. And I did not write down the time, but whatever. Check all the places. That's not my job.
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
I think it's 4. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Brandon. Right. Thank you to my friends Jamie Bartlett of the 509 Syndicate and Scott Linklater of South Hill FC for joining me. Be sure to follow the Spokane Soccer Show on Instagram or YouTube. I'm posting more videos to YouTube too. So please do all the follows and the liking and the rating and the reviewing. And thank you all for listening. Until next time.
Boom.